So for our next speaker, I would love to introduce the one and only Annie Tang. Annie is a senior design manager for seller at Opendoor, where she works on drastically simplifying the home selling experience. And in her time at Opendoor, Annie has worked on designing various aspects of the Opendoor consumer experience, like trade-ins, buying and mortgages. But outside of that, she loves to hang out with her sweet pup. So without further ado, Annie, I'm going to pass it off to you.
All right, here we go. Sorry, don't use Zoom every day. Oh my gosh, Morgan, that was such an amazing and inspiring talk. This is actually not my first time hearing it from Morgan, but actually I feel inspired the second time around too. And it really got me thinking about the internal self-awareness piece, especially because I think, as we think about self-awareness, it's easy to think about the external piece, at least for me. And so this really got me thinking about the internal piece. And so with that, I'll transition over to my talk for the day. And that is about design and strategy at Opendoor. So like Morgan said, I'm the senior design manager for Seller. Seller is one of our teams here at Opendoor, and I manage the team of designers that work on that experience for our customers. A little bit about me, I started out in architecture, so did not study design, UX design at all, and worked at a couple of different various larger scale companies before I found my way to Opendoor. And the reason why I joined Opendoor about 4.5 years ago was really I wanted to work on a very complex real world problem. And at the time, it was a pretty small startup. And I was really excited by the opportunities that it gave. But most importantly, I was really excited to design for online and offline experiences where I wasn't really selling an app or an interface, but I was actually thinking through selling a service that included both the digital experience and a real world component to it. And that felt really exciting to me. And so today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about design. And before I get into it, I wanted to get a signal maybe in the chat. You can throw in the chat if any of you guys have been watching Mythic Quest. It's been a favorite around our house lately. See, Angie definitely has. A couple other people. I have personally been loving it. My husband and I really love to watch this show. One gripe I will say that I do have about this is that it really centers around this myth of the creative genius. You've got this creative director who over the course of the night comes up with like these amazing, visions for the new game. And, the art directing team just like creates it and there's no research or anything and makes for great TV. But unfortunately, that is not really how design actually works in real life. And so, over the course of designing in my design career, what I've realized is core for design and for product design actually, and creating products is that, the geniusness of coming up with the ideas isn't actually the hard part. And it's a good thing and a bad thing. It means that, even if you feel like you're not like an ideas person and you don't have that, like it's not the end all be all for being a designer. And also at the same time, being a designer doesn't mean that you're just the one coming up with ideas and other people execute. So a lot of being a designer is validating the idea, effectively communicating across the company, and figuring out how to build it out. And so I'm going to go over that a little bit with a two-part agenda. So I'll talk through some of the principles that we have within the design team at Opendoor that help guide us to make sure that we're really being diligent about how we design for our customers. And then I'll also walk through a case study for what we did for our seller experience last year, where we redesigned the experience end to end when COVID hit and really helped our customers figure out a way to sell their home faster and on their own time. So principle number one that I have with our team is we always start with research. We never forget the data. So every idea should be backed by reasons why people's lives will be better with it. So what we do is we spend a lot of time talking to our customers, our users, to discover problems and validate possible solutions before we even get into any kind of ideating phase. So it's really important for us to really empathize with our customers and really understand what those needs are. A couple ways that we do this at a high level is qualitative research and quantitative research. On the qualitative level, that's really talking to our customers, doing user interviews, and an insight that we might get out of qualitative research could be something like what I have here, which is meet Linda. Linda is looking to sell her home and buy a new one. She is completely overwhelmed with the process of coordinating two transactions to line up her move, and that's the buy and sell transactions. So we're kind of like talking to customers and really getting at what is really difficult for them in their process. Quantitative research, is really about, sizing this opportunity. So could mount in something like this, like Linda, 70% of home sellers in the United States are simultaneously buying and selling a home at the same time. This basically tells us, okay, so this is a real need, and actually a ton of people are experiencing this need. And so that really centers around a problem that we can obsess over, then that we can ideate upon. So the second principle that we really adhere to is first visualize the experience, not just the UI. So I've worked with tons of designers over my career, and designers junior and senior, when I've seen so many folks, when we get a new prompt or we get a new idea, we immediately hit the pixels and we design out a shiny experience, and it's really, really amazing. We forget that actually the customer needs to be the star of the story. It's not about the UI. And so what we really emphasize is when we start thinking about new ideas or solving problems, we think about the story, we think about the customer and how they experience the flow from end to end. And sometimes we do storyboards like this, sometimes we do flow charts, but it's really about putting the customer at the forefront of the story first, and then the UI and the pixels kind of fall to support that. So here's, an example of some work that we do when we put together flows and comps. You'll see that we have like the digital experience, but also interspersed, we have, images that support kind of telling a story of what happens in real life. We've got text updates and someone on the couch receiving them. We've got like a walkthrough prep, and imagining that a customer is cleaning their home and getting ready for a walkthrough before they log onto their mobile app to do that walkthrough. So really putting it situational with the designs is really core to how we try to think about designing new products. And then the last principle that we have is really that execution matters and we sweat the details. Again, design isn't just about the idea and the strategy. Equally important is the craft and the execution. Actually, a lot of times what I've seen is, the idea might be, the final idea that gets executed might not be, the most novel thing, but if we execute it really well and really diligent about it and we track it and we learn from it, that's really what makes a product successful. So what we really enforce is every detail, every pixel of experience matters, not just the strategy, but also exactly how we execute it so that we're delivering a high quality experience to our end customers. So with those principles, I'm going to walk you guys through a tactical kind of case study to kind of bring this to life and show you guys at a high level how we go about big design projects at Opendoor. So what this case study is at a high level, I'm going to walk you through how we ended up designing a centralized dashboard for our Opendoor experience, where the design team created a vision to unify several parts of our experience, which guided a lot of the product roadmap throughout 2020. So starting with the problems and the research, so what did we find? So in 2019, throughout the course of the year, what we found is that our experience at Opendoor was just really disjointed. Customers were telling us that they were getting dead ends, that there was a lot of long wait times in between parts of the experience. And one thing that we, give to our customers is they come to us and we give them an offer on their home, but there was a really long wait time and they didn't know what was coming up next. There was a lot of scheduling coordination going on. So there's a lot of things happening and a lot of dead ends, and people didn't really know what the next step was. And that was really impacting our customer experience. So at the end of 2019, we got together a group of cross-functional leaders, PMs, designers, engineers, and operators, and we did a sprint over the course of a week. And what we really wanted to do was figure out a strategy to solve those problems that we have identified from our research team and try to help to come up with a visualization of an end state, a future state that we want to aim towards by the end of the year that would solve all the identified problems that we had. And that would hopefully guide our work. And that way we can break it out into chunks that we can kind of slowly build towards over the course of the year. And so the output of that sprint, what we created was a single narrative for that end state. So what we actually did was we created a deck that included, pieces like the images that we see on the right, where we actually just laid out a story for our customer, Jill, who was looking to buy and sell. And we put together, a couple screens, but really focusing on the story and how she feels and what she's interacting with. So we created this vision deck, and we actually tested a couple of these high-level concepts with potential customers. What we aimed to do was we really want to show strong concepts that were new to the experience that we could refine at a later time, but it was really about thinking about this new experience for our customer Jill that would solve all of her needs by the end of the year. A couple of the big ideas that came out of this was the idea for the Opendoor dashboard, where we would centralize all of these disjointed experiences into one place where our customers can come back to see what's next. But a couple of different ideas too was like this idea of an instant offer. Previously we were having customers wait 24, 48 hours. What if we could give them an instant offer as they were telling us information about their home? We can update, their offer live. What if we could give them clear milestones, like we always internally call a pizza tracker, kind of like the Domino's pizza tracker. But what if we could make it super clear like that for every stage of this buying and selling process on their dashboard? Another big pain point was that customers were having to schedule these inspections and figure out how to line up having people come into their homes. So what if we leverage technology and help customers do self-guided inspections where they could just upload a couple of photos of their home, and we could do the inspection without having to actually go into their home. So all of these ideas culminated into this vision deck. And what was really cool that came out of it is once we had an aligned vision for where we want to go towards for the end of the year, we could then, formulate a roadmap and piece off different projects that each team would then take to work towards, that vision. And we could get really tactical and figure out, what the right way to execute towards it would be. And the great thing about this is that the sub teams then had kind of a more or less unified idea of like where we wanted to head towards and build towards for the year. So these are just some screens about how we sweated the details. We started from each project then, went through various rounds of research and low fidelity kind of mocks on the left side to high fidelity mocks on the right side. Ultimately whittling down to one experience that we ultimately shipped. And with that, we're actually going to save, I have Q&A on here, but we're actually going to save Q&A until the very end. But that's it on kind of an example of how we design an Opendoor, both on like a principal level and also in terms of like case study.